This is Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. I'm your host, Paul Gatling, and we are bringing the University of Central Arkansas to Northwest Arkansas. Each episode, we will talk with leaders, alumni, and innovators driving this region forward, people who are shaping industries and defining what is next for our state. Let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. I'm Paul Gatling, and today we're going to talk about community development and how that connects directly to the University of Central Arkansas through a nationally recognized program that we have been running for about 40 years. It's called the Community Development Institute, or CDI, and I'm going to give you a little background on that straight from the website that you could Google around and find CDI. So it started in 1987, and each year, community and economic development leaders from across the country come to UCA for hands-on training on how to strengthen their towns and regions. And over 3 years of courses, the participants learn practical skills in things like planning and leadership and workforce development and building strong local economies. And CDI is taught by experienced practitioners and supported by the Walton Family Foundation, and it's designed for anyone who wants to make an immediate positive impact in their community. And one of those leaders is my guest today. He is Pea Ridge Mayor Nathan See., who has used CDI to transform the way his community plans for what a lot of people are planning for in Northwest Arkansas, and that's growth, but also how to make opportunities from that growth. Nathan, It's great to see you here. Thanks very much.
Paul, thank you very much for the invitation. I appreciate you and your advocacy for Pea Ridge, and it's just an honor to be here with you today.
Well, I appreciate you. I know you're busy. I know Christmas time is right around the corner, and you've got a lot of things planning. But again, like you say, you're such a big proponent of UCA's CDI program. And what I love about it is you didn't come to it as a UCA alum. You're not a UCA alum, but you came to it as a mayor who is wanting to expand your toolkit and take advantage of the things that are offered there that you can bring back to your community that is, like we said, changing rapidly and growing rapidly. So we're going to get into those details a little later, but just really, how do you put that impact into words? How do you, being part of the CDI and being part of all the people that are there, how do you put that impact into words that it's meant?
I would say that whenever you go through CDI, you create a toolbox of tools that you leave with that you're able to go back to your city and implement and create things that maybe you weren't doing before. And you find different ways of doing things. Whenever you're thinking about economic development, a lot of people just think about tax-based revenue. And so going through CDI, you realize that there's an umbrella of things that fall under economic development, and that community development facilitates economic development. And so there's a lot of key components that we walked away from CDI with, and we are, being able to implement those in different areas, from planning to land use to just having conversations, just getting the community involved and letting their voice be heard. And so at the end of the day, you're going to have those people that are cave people or NIMBYs, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to incorporate those into your community so they see that there's value in what you're doing with the growth that's coming. I would much rather, and it's said by John Chadwell out of Newport, I would much rather be growing than not growing. And a lot of people just, we need to embrace that growth and not fight the growth. So there's a lot of great things that come out of it. And so I'm sure we'll get into more of that here in the
Absolutely.
future.
These are the types of, we will get into it. Those are the types of conversations we want to have on this platform. But first, let's get into the conversation about Nathan See. And you and I have gotten to know each other a lot better the last couple of years. We talked a few times when I was at the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. You were just elected mayor, I believe, November of 2022, I guess.
That's correct.
So about
yes,
3 years ago, and but have over 20 years of experience working for the city, mostly with the street department and the superintendent of the streets, and a Pea Ridge High School graduate. So let's just talk a little bit first about your story, because I think it's a good one. You've lived in, I think you moved to Pea Ridge when you were, 11, 12
years old? Yes, sir.
Where did you move from?
Moved from Catoosa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We moved to Pea Ridge. My dad was a contractor, and he would chase storms to do repairs to hail or tornado or whatever it may be. Well, Arkansas had a really bad ice storm. And so it collapsed a bunch of the turkey and chicken houses. And so he got a contract and we moved over here, followed that. And we didn't know we were going to stay here forever, but we did. And I'm glad we did.
Right.
Arkansas, everybody, whenever you say you're going to Arkansas, what's in Arkansas that you're going for? But Northwest Arkansas is a different piece.
Yeah.
And so we moved here and my dad did houses for a while whenever he was here. He went into building some houses he had a company called 6C Construction. There were 6 of us in the family. And so that was his name. And then later on, he changed it to Blackhawk Construction. My mom worked for Walmart for a little while and then went into the postal carrier business and was in postal carrier business for 30 plus years. She was committed and she got like Samaritan awards from the U.S. Postal Service. So service, I would say, is in my blood to be able to carry out the service that's at hand.
Right. And so Blackhawk, by the way, if you're not familiar, Pea Ridge High School Blackhawks.
That's right.
Proud Pea Ridge High School alum. And so you started out after high school, you started your professional career working for the city, right? Working for the street department there in Pea Ridge.
That's correct. Whenever I was a junior in high school, I was an entrepreneur, had my own embroidery business called His Emblem Embroidery. And I sold it in 2003. And then I went to work for the city in 2003 as a contract laborer, just mowing the green spaces. Who would have thought it was going to become what it is today? And so in 2005, I became assistant superintendent on the street side. And in 2010, I was promoted by Mayor Jackie Crabtree, was my predecessor. And he took me in and said, you know what, I need you to be the street superintendent. And so I was a street superintendent from 2010 until I was elected in 2022 as mayor.
Yeah, when you say 2005 in Pea Ridge, I think of Mike Herod and the dead tee offense for the Pea Ridge High School football team. That's where my connection to Pea Ridge goes back as the sports editor of the daily paper in Bentonville, the Benton County Daily Record. And I covered a lot of football games out at the old football field. Yeah, the old Pea Bowl, where went to a dead end and to find a parking spot, and we called it the largest outdoor cocktail party in Benton County.
That's a true statement.
And so, like me, and more so you've had a front row seat for just growth that you probably couldn't even fathom 20 years ago, and what Pea Ridge was then and what it's becoming. So walk me through those early years of working in the street department at Pea Ridge, and then kind of contrast that to the issues of today versus those issues that you were dealing with 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'll say that, whenever I started, there was 3 of us that worked there on the street side of things. And actually we were combined between water and street together. There were 6 of us all together, and we kind of overlapped for a little bit to do both jobs and get them done. The big thing that I will tell you is between 2000 and 2010, we grew at 110% in the city. And so that was an astronomical amount of growth. And so there was a lot more development happening then. A lot of education happened during that time for our city, from the development standpoint, from the planning standpoint of being able to find out, all right, what do we need to be regulating and what do we not to be regulating? And so from the street side, we were doing a lot of inspections on streets and compaction and drainage. And so we had to grow our staff. In a matter of 2 years, we had to add 3 other people on just for the inspection piece because we had so much growth coming in. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you do that, you have to really know that whenever you're hiring people that can do the job, because you don't want to be the one to say, yes, we're changing things for the better, and then find out 10 years later that it wasn't for the better. So for what we were doing today in the world of the city of Pea Ridge, I will say that it's probably the same struggles that we had back then. Infrastructure. Infrastructure is always the big thing whenever you have growth at that amount, that percentage. And so we are working on that every day. We're working on infrastructure and, keeping up with the road miles. I think right now we're at 160 lane miles. Whenever I was there, we had about 80 lane miles. And so we've doubled in lane miles. And that means that, okay, we got more streets to take care of. We got more residents to take care of. And I will say that we've executed well.
So I would think, and you maybe agree with me, the most important of those lane miles is about a 9 or 10 mile stretch connecting Bentonville to Pea Ridge.
Yes, sir.
Right, the highway there.
Yep.
What can you tell me about how important that is to get that stretch of roadway widened in order for, if you don't, it's going to clog your growth. It's going to stifle your growth.
That's right.
How important is that to get that stretch widened, and how and when is that going to happen?
So it's very important for a couple different reasons. For residential use, it's important, but for local economy, it's important. Whenever you have site selectors come to your city, they look at the ingress egress of your city, and Highway 72 is the biggest point that they talk about. If we can get that widened, then we can come here and build X. Jared Wiley, director of RDOT, have a great relationship with RDOT. Very, very pleased with what they've been doing in the state of Arkansas and in Northwest Arkansas. And so we've been waiting 20 plus years to be able to say, hey, we're actually going to see something done on Highway 72. And so into 2027 STIP, they've actually allocated $7 million for right-of-ways and utility relocations along Highway 72 corridor. And that's going to be able to make it go to a 4-lane. The whole project would be $180 million probably to do the whole thing. It's just crazy construction costs right now.
Right.
And so they'll probably phase it out through a 6 or 7 year period to be able to do the project. But that's hope for us to be able to grow that local economy and bring things to Pea Ridge that we currently can't have because of that Highway 72 connector.
What's an example of that? What could you bring that you don't have?
Retail. Retail is huge. If you can get, Ross or TJ Maxx or some of those people, Aldi, something like that. We had the announcement of Supercenter coming in, and so they're supposed to be starting in 2026. And I think that's going to be a big proponent for us to be able to have more economic drive, is because now that we have a Supercenter, there'll be less people traveling to Rogers and Bentonville for that, because we'll have one in Pea Ridge. We've had multiple site selectors with distribution centers come in, and little industry parks that wanted to come in. And it's just the ingress egress that gets them from I-49, because there's no shoulder, no passing lanes. It's just a big risk they take whenever they're trying to move freight.
Yeah, I've heard it described as, in the morning, it's a parade from Pea Ridge to Bentonville. In the afternoon, it's a parade from Bentonville to Pea Ridge up and down the highway there. When did you first begin to think about expanding your service to the city and think about leading the city as a mayoral candidate?
Well, Mayor Crabtree told me, we were in a meeting and he said, I'm not going to run again. I'm going to retire. And he said, we need to find somebody to run. And I said, okay, I'll keep my eyes peeled and see what we can find.
But you didn't raise your hand.
I didn't raise my hand immediately. No, sir. I said, I'm good on the street side. I know it. I love it. And that was enough to keep you busy. Yeah.
Anybody in that job busy.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, we went back to a couple weeks later, and he called me into his office, and he said, we need to have a conversation. He said, the deadlines, we need to get somebody in here that can make this progress we've had keep going. And so I said, well, who do you want? Who do you want to go after? Is there somebody here? And he said, yeah, that one right there in the chair right there. I want that one. And I said, really? And so I said, well, I need to talk to my wife and my family and, pray about things and make sure this is where we need to be headed. Had great support from the family. And I just felt like, okay, it's my time to serve. Mm-hmm. And whenever you're in public service, you're a servant, and you got to have that heart carried out. And I was like, all right, this is what you like. Here am I. Let me do this. And so I said, okay. And here we are today. He's been a great encourager. Jackie has been. He was there 28 years. Yeah. He's got connections all over the state with the Arkansas Municipal League and different people that I just have. They've came to surround me, because of his leadership. They've came to say, hey, Jackie is a big proponent of you. He wants us to come beside you and help you. And so it's just been an easy transition for the last 3 years, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you've had, like you said, a lot of support from the family, but you also had a ton of support at the ballot box on election day. Yeah. And I'm assuming re-election coming up next year.
That's right.
I'm assuming
2026
the plan is to run.
Plan to run again. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm
Yep.
sure you'll have the requisite support then. All right, for folks who haven't driven through Pea Ridge in a little while, how do you describe the town now? How many people live in Pea Ridge? What do you say to those site selectors and people who are curious about this town?
I say, Pea Ridge is about 13,000 in population. Our trade area, though, is about 56,000 people that come to trade in Pea Ridge. And Pea Ridge is a small town. A lot of people call it the Mayberry, of Northwest Arkansas, but we're a growing community that still has small town feel. And I tell people this because we as individuals create the community in which we live by the heart that we carry. And so if we want to have a small town feel, then let's take care of our neighbors and let's take care of people that may need something. And that's one thing I'll say about Pea Ridge is whenever you come to Pea Ridge and you're there, you're family. Because if there's something that goes wrong and somebody says, hey, I need help, you have 13,000 people that are going to be there to help you through whatever you're going through. And that's what I feel that Pea Ridge is we're a small town feel in a growing economy and growing population, but we still love and care for our neighbors.
Yeah, growing like crazy. You had a community town hall meeting recently, and I came out to that, and I think you'd asked a question of the people who's lived here for 3 years or 5 or whatever number you raised to raise your hand, and there were a lot fewer people that did not raise their hand than did. I mean, there were a lot of people who are newer to Pea Ridge. So was there a moment wherever maybe you were at the street department or maybe you'd become mayor, whatever. Was there a moment when the first signs that you saw that Pea Ridge was starting to hit a new level of growth and a new level of momentum?
Yeah, I would say that whenever we realized it in 2021, we went through COVID and then that went away. And then we had a lot more growth happen in 21 and 22. And then, from the street side, it never really slowed down until COVID hit. From, whenever I was there until 2019, it slowed down because of COVID. But, I just think that it's going to keep going. We're growing at over 10% annually as a city. And I think that we have a lot of opportunities to come for our residents and for the region. And you mentioned it earlier, but the Walton Family Foundation being great supporters of the region, they helped us send people to CDI, and they help us with being able to create space for people to enjoy. And so, I'm just very thankful for them to give back to the communities in which we live and the region, because, it's you don't have people like that every day.
How did the Community Development Institute, CDI, how did that first get on your radar? How did that, what was there a moment to say, yeah, this is something I need to do?
So I got with Danny Presley. Danny Presley was on the chair. He was on the committee for CDI, and he was a Pea Ridge resident.
Okay.
While he was he was the manager at Holiday Island, the city manager. And he said, hey, I have something to propose to you that you might want to go do. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, let's have coffee and we'll talk about it. And so he brought me this CDI idea. And he said, for where you are and where you're going to head, this is going to be a great tool for you to have. And so we looked into it, and I was like, man, this is really good. I searched it up and found some stuff. And he told me some things that he walked away from it with. And so I said, well, get me connected. So he connected me with Shelby Fiegel at UCA. And Shelby's phenomenal, by the way, and Tabitha and Tracy and those women right there are go-getters, let me tell you. But they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And so we had a conversation, and they said, Walton Family Foundation has sponsorships or scholarships for this. Would you want to use those? And I said, sure, we'll use them, And so by the Walton Family Foundation, we were able to attend, myself and Dustin Fye, our community development director, joined me there. And, whenever you're there, you create a whole different group of connections.
Yeah, the network
is phenomenal for what you can get out of CDI. And so the first year, it was a little bit like, you had to feel it out. What's this going to be like? What are we going to get out of it? You always think in the back, is this a waste of time? But no, it's great. It was a fantastic thing to go through, and we'll get into more details, I'm sure, for for what happened at CDI. But
right. Well, just what was it like to learn in that kind of room? Like you mentioned, there were mayors from, Elkins and Prairie Grove and Lowell and city planners. But there's also people from Texas and Missouri and Oklahoma. Just what was it like to be able to learn from each other and to network and have those conversations with people who are going through the same type of issues?
You're able to find out that you're not the only one. And you're able to find out that you can probably come together and create solutions to problems better whenever you're in the room together. And so whenever you're talking about Dardanelle or talking about Russellville or Conway or Cabot or any of those cities, at the end of the day, we all probably have the same issues, just on a different magnitude.
Yeah, whether it's 13,000 or 63,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so you're able to find out maybe what not to do from some of those cities that have been through the growth stage that you're fixing to go through. Mm-hmm. And so it's great to be in the room with those people to know, like, hey, I realize that you're growing, but you need to probably hone in more on this rather than that, because that's going to come anyways. But really engage the community and get the community to be your focal point for a little bit. And so, it's just a vast opportunities whenever you get in a room with people from all over to be able to know that, hey, I can pick up the phone and call if I need something, or they can pick up the phone and call if they need something, because we're a cohort. We are together in this. And for the 3 years that we're there, I had added an employee from CDI, created great friends through CDI with Ross Phillips and James Bell. And, it really just creates your portfolio of relationships to carry you to the next level. And one thing I've said multiple times is your network will determine your net worth. And so who the people that you're around are going to help you execute well with what you want to do, as long as they're the right network that you have. So, but no, CDI, I would recommend it to anybody in the public service or not in the public service. Anybody that's engaged in the community, you need to be a part of CDI.
Right.
And we were the first class, I believe Shelby said, that had that many mayors in it, which was awesome to see the mayors coming out, because like I said, if we're not advocating for our communities as mayors, then what are we doing? And so I think that that's a big piece for me, is to know that I'm advocating 110% for Pea Ridge, for it to grow and be prosperous in a way that it maybe wouldn't have been had I not been to CDI.
Right. And you've said that CDI has really reshaped your leadership philosophy. Give me an example of that. What is that? Maybe a concept or a tool that you got there that really clicked and you were able to bring that back to Pea Ridge with you?
Don't R&D everything and think that you can take anything from another city and use it for your city, because you won't be successful. Another thing with leadership is knowing that whenever you have people in the room, you want to have people in the room smarter than you, because if you don't, then who's going to drive the success after you? And so be able to have that succession plan for your communities. And leadership is such a huge thing in any aspect. But whenever you're talking about growing a city, growing departments, and growing economic drive, you have to realize that your leadership that you have are what people's watching. What are you doing differently than anybody else? Number one, I want to be accessible. I want people to know that you can call me, text me, email me. I want to be accessible to you at any time that I need to be there. Because if you're not accessible to them, then it kind of throws like, I thought you were our mayor. I thought you were supposed to be here. And so I want to be accessible to the people, from being able to enjoy family together or being at events together. And I want to, everybody is welcome, and, everybody wants to be accepted. Number one thing, and be able to have a diversity. Diversity is good. You need to have that. You need to be able to let people come into your community and be accepted regardless of anything in their background. And so we really have embraced that and really have said that we want to be the community that makes you feel like you're at home.
Yeah. Those are all big concept ideas for a place that's really growing in a lot of areas. Your infrastructure you talked about is probably top of mind every day.
Yes.
Your diversity, your inclusion, your proactive versus reactive development. So how much of your time do you spend thinking in those terms of, you mentioned something else at your town hall meeting, thinking about growth in decades and not in increments, 2 to 3 years. You've got to think about both, but how do you balance that? How do you think about, we've got to think about Pea Ridge in 20 years,
right.
Because in 20 years, it's going to look a lot different, but it's also going to look different in 3 years too.
I'd say your 20-year plan is something that you look for. And I always tell people your 20-year plan is probably really going to be your 15-year plan. Your 3-year plan is probably going to be something you're going to do at 2. And so make sure that you're able to look at those plans and execute them well. But whenever you're thinking about a long-term plan, you got to know where you're going. Like, you got to have a vision. You got to be able to show the people, hey, this is where we're headed. And, master street plan is going to look like this. Master land use plan is going to look like this. Lay it out there for the people to see and let the people catch the vision of where you're headed. The vision where we're headed is growth and opportunities for all. We want to grow, we want to have opportunities for all, and we want to create spaces for all to play. At the end of the day, that's kind of our 3 mottos, if you will. And so parks is big for us in the next 2 years, infrastructure in the next 5 years, local economy is incorporated into that as well. And then the next 20 years is going to be, all right, where are we going to grow out to as far as annexations? Are we headed south? Are we headed east? Are we headed west? So that's going to be the next big thing of looking for that land that we're going to be able to go into the city of Pea Ridge to create Pea Ridge to be extended their territory. Even if I'm not here, it'll be set up for the next person that takes over. You always want to be able to set the next person up for success that is going to take over after you.
So all of that to me sounds like Pea Ridge's path to smart growth, right? And so I use that phrase intentionally. You wrote an op-ed that was published in the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. I will give them some publicity here, my great former employer. But that was your guest commentary, and that was the headline. So what does smart growth look like? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to Pea Ridge?
I think as a region, we have to think regionally. We have to come together more as a region than individuals and come to the table and say, what are we going to do about transportation? What are we going to do about wastewater? What are we going to do about stormwater? Those are the big issues that are fixing to come down. And as a region, we need to be focused more on a regional impacting than thinking about, okay, Pea Ridge, we're going to take care of ourselves, but where is all of this going to end up? Well, if it's going to end up in Bella Vista, then we need to have a regional something in Bella Vista or Garfield or Gateway or wherever it may be. Smart growth is getting that vision to show regionally, we're going to be able to do X in a matter of 10 or 20 years, as long as the region can come together and make something happen. And so we are really going to have to hone in on some regionally impacting things that we can do together. I do know that the Walton Family Foundation and the health department have came together to a regional study for wastewater in Northwest Arkansas. And so that's going to be working its way through in the middle of 2026. Wastewater is a big thing. You got to be able to flush your toilet. I tell everybody, you can flush your toilet at Pea Ridge. But that's because we were ahead of the growth. You have to be proactive to the growth rather than reactive. Not saying that the other cities weren't. I think they just exploded extremely fast and weren't expecting it. And so it's one of those lessons learned for Pea Ridge is to say, hey, we need to pay attention to what happened because we don't want to be that person. And so that's what we're doing now is trying to be proactive and be able to set up some funding mechanisms for a wastewater plant expansion if we have to. We're doing a water tower and some transmission line stuff in the future. So we're just trying to plan for the future rather than being reactive, being proactive to it. Because I tell everybody the growth is coming. Like we have to embrace it. It's going to come, and we're going to grow, and that's healthy. That's healthy growth to be able to have that happen.
Yeah, let's be proactive about it. Absolutely, Ryan. You've also made the point that that businesses and site selectors are choosing Pea Ridge. They aren't just looking at population numbers, right? They are looking at your infrastructure and your schools and amenities. And I know you said parks are going to be a big opportunity focus for you the next couple of years. How did CDI influence the way that you communicate the story of Pea Ridge on a lot of those different levels?
I would say that it helps me communicate because whenever you think about community development, a lot of people think or are in the mindset of community development being a building permit person or a person that does code enforcement. Well, guess what? Community development is all of us together. Community development is every person in your community, and we're developing a vision and a plan together so we can execute our vision and plan for our communities as one. And so whenever I went through CDI, it really hit me for the 10-step rule. Whenever you go through it, there's a 10-step process of doing things. And I use the 10-step process, and it's, don't ask me to say what that is.
I was just about to say.
Anyway, it's in the, it's in the CDI process of the 10-step rule. And Shelby would probably be very disappointed since I didn't know it. But that's the process that we use whenever we think about community development, and everything's community development. I don't care if it's a park space, fire station, police station, a new retail place coming in. All of that's community development because you're creating spaces for people to go. You're creating third spaces. And so there's a lot of language that CDI used in the trainings that you go through that I'm using because I went through that. I wouldn't have known those third spaces and right. These different languages without going through that. But whenever we did a new brand through CDI, yep. We went through Thrive and did a new brand for for Pea Ridge because we felt like we needed to have something a little bit more welcoming and have something that popped, for people to see, oh, Pea Ridge, life's better on the ridge. That's our motto because we do believe that life's better on the ridge. And we do believe that Pea Ridge has a great future to come for the residents who are there and for the region.
What made you decide, and you mentioned Thrive, and that's the great nonprofit in Helena led by Will Staley and our Center for Economic Development at UCA. What made you decide that it was time to refresh how Pea Ridge is branded and how Pea Ridge is viewed? I mean, it seems like a small thing, but it's not a small thing.
It's not a small thing. Yeah. Your brand is your main driver. Mm-hmm. If your first impression is what people get. So whenever they go into your community and they see a welcome to Pea Ridge sign, it's good that they see welcome to Pea Ridge and not just, and nothing against the battlefield at all, but we just had some cannons and a sunrise. That was our logo. But we had to change it because we have changed as a community since then. And we incorporated still the military into it because of the way we did the badge for the military park and the star for the military. And so, whenever we thought about doing the brand, we brought the community together. Will and Ryan brought the community together and said, they asked them 5 questions. What does Pea Ridge look like? What does Pea Ridge smell like? What do you like about Pea Ridge? What do you not like about Pea Ridge? And what can we create Pea Ridge to be? And so whenever we went through that process, we came up with what we have today. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't, it was probably, we had a committee of people that was on that with us. And some of the committee people have only lived in Pea Ridge 2 years. And one of them was our editor for Pea Ridge Times, Annette Beard was on there. Yeah, and she's a native of Pea Ridge. Yeah. And so they were very open about, hey, let's talk about this. We need to add this. But I let the committee really drive it. And then because I want them to be ownership. Ownership is what I want them to see. And so whenever we were able to do that, the community came out and I love the new logo. We had a big brand push, had shirts we sold.
Yeah.
And so, and we didn't have shirts with our old logo. We had our old logo for 30 something years. Mm-hmm. We never had merchandise with our old logo. Our old logo didn't say Pea Ridge on it anywhere. To be honest with you, it just had, like I said, cannons, a mountain, and sunrise. And then you just add the font wherever you want to add the font. But the new logo and new brand for Pea Ridge, I would say has been embraced well.
Yeah, well, nothing will spark opinion like a new logo and a logo reveal and change, something like that. But I think you have the requisite street cred, having been raised in Pea Ridge and graduated. I mean, when somebody asks you, what do you like and don't like? I mean, you can answer that
Yeah.
Truthfully, you're a Pea Ridge guy. You're not just the mayor. You're a Pea Ridge guy. I want to go back to one of the exercises at CDI that we have talked about that kind of had an impact on you is the poverty simulation.
Oh my!
And you wrote about that in your article. How did that experience really kind of change the way that you thought about planning and thought about leadership in your community?
I would say poverty simulator is something that will change anybody's perspective on that. But whenever we were going through it, I was going through it as a young boy whose mom couldn't drive and I had to get to school. Mm-hmm. And so going through the process of realizing that transportation is huge and knowing that whenever you're going through life as an individual, your life is different than other people's lives. We all have a different life that we live. And so whenever you're going through poverty simulator, it opens your eyes to reality in some aspects of life for a lot of different reasons, from elderly, not having people come check on them, to maybe the guy that just got out of prison that needs to get it to workforce. How do we get them to workforce? To being able to go to the local bank and talk to the local bank about being able to be a supporter of an event. And that's the poverty simulator will open your eyes. And we're going to do one in August, I think, of 2026 with our city council and planning together. And Shelby and Tabitha are putting it together. But we're going to do one because I want them to experience it. And a lot of them probably did experience in real life whenever they were growing up, probably. And it's probably going to bring back some things in life that they had to go through as struggles or whatever it may be. But I think it's good sometimes that we go through the poverty simulator to realize that we're putting maybe regulations where we shouldn't put regulations, that we're hand tying people where they can't afford to be hand tied. They can't afford to not be able to go to work. They can't afford to not have food or not be able to get to a food bank. And I think that's just something that I got out of poverty simulator was too many times we get in our own way as a community.
It sounds like you mentioned earlier that inclusive growth is going to be very important. It sounds like this exercise is probably the most impactful that you could have done.
Oh yeah,
for that, right?
It'll bring tears to your eyes, to be honest with you, whenever you're going through it, because you don't realize, and you put it into perspective of this is real life for some people whenever you're doing it, and you don't realize what a lot of people go through day in and day out of just trying to make ends meet and just trying to support their family or just trying to get an education. You know, from high school, there's a thing that I will tell you, we have Bright Futures at Pea Ridge. Bright Futures we were like the first or second one in the state to get it, but there's a story about Bright Futures, and it brought me to the poverty simulator situation. Also, as a boy, was always late to get to high school. He was always late to class, and the teacher said, "Why are you always late to class? You've been late 3 times this week." He said, "Well, my mom and dad have to go to work to make ends meet, and I have to walk my brother to school, and then that takes time to get to high school." Mm-hmm. And they said, "Well, what can we do to help you?" And so the counselor said, "The bus goes right by your house, to just ride the bus." "Well, my brother can't ride the bus. He's handicapped. So we have to find a different way to get him to school." And so that's just some stuff that you don't realize that's in real life situations. Another story is a kid who walked down the hallway and his shoes weren't tied. And the teacher says, "Tie your shoes," and he said, "Well, kind of embarrassed, but I don't know how to tie my shoes. These are my brother's hand-me-downs. I never had to tie my shoes." And so you know what they did? The school went and got a pair of Velcro shoes and gave him the right size shoe, number one, and gave him a pair of shoes that he could be confident in. And that's, I think, is a lot of things to the poverty simulator, is giving the people the confidence to be successful and giving them the tools to be able to be successful. And from a community standpoint, if you're not growing that next generation in leadership and giving them the confidence, then we're going to be hurting 20 years from now.
I noticed that the CDI 2026 application period is now open. Are there going to be others from Pea Ridge that follow in your footsteps that are going to apply and go through?
We actually have our active transportation coordinator going and our Parks and Recs director going. Joshua Johnson is our active transportation coordinator, and Caleb Turner, our Parks director, is going because I want everybody to go through it. And I think that they'll get something out of it that they'll bring back and be able to implement something different than what we are doing. If anything else, it gives them an opportunity to network with people and be able to be in a room with people that they can bounce conversations off of.
Yeah, and all that will come back to Pea Ridge, your community, and make your community stronger and better. But at some point, we're going to stop calling Pea Ridge a community, and it's going to be called a city.
That's right.
We're going to go from a town to a city. So let's talk about, let's say, the year 2035. What does Pea Ridge look like in the year 2035? What do you see?
Well, Highway 72 will be widened by 2035. I'm going to speak that out right now. A lot of retail space, a lot of multifamily, and I believe it'll be a prosperous city, and people will enjoy and love to live in Pea Ridge. You know, it's a place they're going to call home, and it's a place where people are going to be able to build families and build generational families and not have to worry about my kid can't afford rent. They have to live in another city because rent's too high. Workforce housing is a huge thing for us to go after right now. We're actually making a trip in a couple of weeks to Scottsdale, Arizona, to look at some ideas of what we can do in Pea Ridge for workforce housing, to be able to create it to where those people can be in Pea Ridge. My daughter recently got married, and she and her new husband were looking for a place to rent in Pea Ridge, and like, man, we can't find anything without $1,800 a month. It's just crazy. And starting off, they can't afford that. And so it really hit home with me in that aspect of, hey, I would like my kids to be able to live here. And so how do we create that? What are we doing to do to create it to where the next family that moves to Pea Ridge and has a high school graduate that goes and gets married and wants to have a family in Pea Ridge, how do we create that to happen? And so that's what we're working on now is workforce development.
Yeah, embracing that growth, like you said, but at the same time, still maintaining that community vibe, the small town vibe. I'm curious how you got connected or how you got pointed to Scottsdale, Arizona as like a best practice that you want to learn more about.
So I went to Right to Start Entrepreneurship in Fayetteville. I was on the panel for them, and I spoke about Pea Ridge there. Spoke about, hey, we're ready. We're open for business. And some guys that were at Right to Start came and visited with me 2 days later they're actually from Hawaii is where they're out of, from Maui. And they came and visited and said, hey, we want to do this plan. Seems like Pea Ridge may be the place for us to do it. And so we just kind of started the conversation there. And over the last month, really created to where we really like this product that they can offer at a less cost for people to have a home that is as or better than a frame built home. And so we're going to go to Scottsdale and check it out. It's called Strata. Strata is the company. They do a home that's used with Sabscrete, which is like a concrete interior and exterior, fireproof, hurricane rated for 250 mile an hour winds. There's a lot of great things that they offer, but it's cheaper than a regular home. 4 guys can build a house together. And so we're going to incorporate that into the high school and create some workforce development opportunities through the high school. If we can get them to land in Pea Ridge, they also are looking to do a distribution center. And so we're hoping that they come to Pea Ridge and land a distribution center as well.
Man, you're killing all the birds with all the stones with these things. You're checking them off.
We're trying to create the best Pea Ridge we can create, and at the end of the day, that's what you want for any city.
Yeah. Besides, I'm gonna default and say that Highway 72 widening is the big thing. Besides that, what is the challenge that you are most determined to tackle, let's say in the next 5 to 7 years?
Economic growth. Economic growth is a huge thing for me to tackle, and not just economic growth, but I would really, really like to push for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is something that I think we're missing as a city. And giving entrepreneurs that opportunity to have a brick and mortar. I have a plan in my head, but I don't know how to make it work. I talked about it Right to Start, and I'm like, I don't know if I should have said that, but I have a plan of being able to create it to where we have a partnership with somebody to do an 18-month plan for entrepreneurs that can come into a storefront, create an 18-month opportunity for them. And if it doesn't work in 18 months, then they no longer are there. But if they get to stay there, they get to grow their business and maybe do a business expansion in the region, because they had an opportunity for an 18-month commitment. Right. And so it's an idea. I'm going to talk to the Walt Finley Foundation and see if we can do something together to create that. But that's one of my biggest things is building local economy and creating Pea Ridge to have space for all to enjoy together. Families are huge. Family values are huge for me. and being able to go places with your family to enjoy together is what we want to create.
All right. Well, very good. We'll leave it there. Nathan, thanks very much. This has been great. Thank you for sharing your story and telling us a little bit more about you, but also being such a tremendous proponent for the Community Development Institute at UCA. I know it means a lot to the institution to see leaders like you go through it, have a wonderful experience, and bring that back to their community, because that's what the program has been set up for 40 years almost. For folks listening who want to keep up with Pea Ridge and learn more about you and learn more about the city, where can they go online? Where can they go on social media?
cityofpearidge.com. You can go on there. I actually do a weekly newsletter that we send out to over 13,000 people, and several don't even live here. And so we just want to get people out there and get the news out to them. So cityofpearidge.com. My email is nsee@cityofpearidgear.gov. So reach out to me and let's connect.
Yeah, you can connect with Nathan too on social media. If you just search around, he's a pretty active guy on social media, which I like. All right, Nathan, great. Thanks
Paul,
again.
thank you very much for the invitation again. Appreciate it.
All right, we appreciate you for tuning in to this edition of Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. Until next time, go Bears. That's it for this episode of Central to NWA, a UCA podcast. I'm Paul Gatling, Senior Director of Northwest Arkansas Engagement for the University of Central Arkansas. Be sure to subscribe to the show and follow UCA on all the appropriate social media. I'll see you next time on Central to NWA.